Welcome back to NRL Fantasy Analysis, everyone. Here we are for another video. We're going to be going through all the interesting options that I have come up with here in the Roosters, the Broncos, the Dogs, and also the Cowboys. So I'm going to start off with the Roosters, and then thanks again for coming back in so early to these videos, guys. I really appreciate it. Starting off with Luke Keary, and he's someone who started really well last year. He moved from the 6th position to the 7 and really took over the team and played really well before he did his ACL. Unfortunately, gained about 150k in price rise just for the sheer volume of try assists and how many times he ran the ball personally and how many times it went to his right side. The kicking was there in terms of his kick meters, and this year, off the back of that good gameplay for that first few months, he comes in at 750k. And the main unfortunate thing with this is obviously the price tag. In the early 600s last year, he was a really good buy for people that picked him up from the top. Right here, you're hoping for him to be, a keeper long term, a 55 to 65 type of player. And the worry here is how much upside do we see? Who's going to play on his left? Is it going to be Walker? Is it going to be Hutchison? Who's it going to be? And are they going to take more of a prominent role than what Lachlan Lamb did last year? That's going to be the question, coming into a season being, very much at keeper level price and having that unknown next year. Because if it is Walker, he's going to be improving, for example. He's going to demand a bit more of the ball, and he's got, you'd have Crichton on the left. You still have a few attacking weapons on that side, so there'd be every reason for them to go left as well. And obviously, Keary can come over and play that side as well, but that's something to think about. And if he's going to be the lead kicker, we're going to see a little bit of reduction in points based on that. So Keary's probably someone that I think that's I'd probably leave at this point, just because I think there being a few more better options in the half position to start us off. Next guy I'll talk about is Lindsey Collins, and he had an awesome start to the year last year. I'll actually pop up his stats through that first period. And coming in at 641k, you're looking for him to be a keeper if you're picking him up in your side. Somewhere about 100k undervalued would be the goal. The question will be, can he get there? So we have a look at his start last year. He obviously played only 6 rounds there. 61, a 64, and a 60 as his 3 best scores, and then two scores of lower value at 31 and 38 with a 49 in there as well. And you've got to pay attention to the one try that he had for sure, and one game where he got a couple of try assists. But if you're looking at his base stats there, every game, even in those lower minute games, is in the mid 20s in tackles and always over 100 meters. So there's the ability there for him to get a few tackle breaks, which are worth a little bit less this year. But I think for him, he's such an important player in the Queensland setup. If he's there last year, obviously, things might be a little bit different. Him and Welch up front being able to play their best games. Obviously, without Welch, getting a head knock and missing out on that first game. I think Collins could really help him out on the park there. So he's obviously a really important player in the Roosters setup. Got the start over Hargraves, last year. But yeah, I think he definitely has the ability to be a 50-point player. He'd probably have to play a few more minutes. I'd want him to play somewhere around the 50 plus. You can see what he did in those first 2 games, getting 51 and 63 minutes. So that's something to think about. Those last 2 games, 41 and 37 minutes isn't enough. So at that price point, I'm probably going to leave him for now. But I think he's really interesting at this point. Someone that's a little bit more interesting at a slightly cheaper price is Paul Monrovsky at 466. So you look at his scoring at the back end of last year, it was a really poor finish. He started really well. And the thing is with him, he's going from a team in the Panthers that were really good to a team in the Roosters that are going to be good as well. So in terms of that production and the try scoring, I don't see it changing too much. He might actually score a lot more tries moving to the Roosters, depending on which side he's going to play. I'd imagine he's going to be on the left with Joey on the right. So Walker, a few try assists to Monrovsky would be ideal. But you see those really good keeper scores at the top, and then you head to the back end of the year there, and 2 tries with 30 and a 31, just not getting as much ball, not running from over 100 meters other than the one time, and just not scoring as well, and that just dropped his price down a fair bit. So if you think that he can be a center keeper, we're looking at in the Roosters side, the only time you see them having a centre keeper is when you have superstars like Latrell and Joey Manu. They're absolute freaks in this game. So I don't think Monrovsky's as good as that. But would you be able to see him, priced around that 40 mark? About 100k underpriced? I think you can. But again, it's probably a little bit too high of a price to go for him when you have other guys that you could look at in the center position, like a Ewan Aitken or a Matt Burton or something like that. So someone to think about if you're interested, but I probably will steer clear at this point. And then we move on to someone like Joseph Sawali, who's obviously the young gun coming up at 350k, and you got the dual position. He's going to be playing on the wing. So do you want to splash out that extra 100k for a guy that has the potential to do okay, but we're not sure what he's going to be? Will he end up being a 500k player? Will he just score 30s? If he scores 30s, it's a little bit undervalued, but it's not worth it. And are you going to want to start him in your side? That's going to be the question. Secondly, if he does get a lot of ball and a lot of tries, then he might be able to be like that 40k player. But he's someone that, to me, just on the stats and to the eye, wasn't a super hard worker out of trouble, like a Morris is and those types of players for the Roosters. So that's something to think about with Joseph, but he's definitely going to have a stretch at some point during the year where he scores really well. So keep him in mind, but yeah, not sure on any of those Roosters players at the moment, but they're definitely of interest to me. We move to the Broncos, and Payne Haas, I think, is a really, really good captaincy option. He's going to be a gun for the year. We speak about these guys in the 750 plus range, and really you just want them to be able to at least do their job in terms of stay at that price point. And if you're picking anything, 700, from this price onwards, you're looking to captain them. It's going to be very hard to keep multiple guys at this price point in your team, especially with the reduced cap. So, you've got Cleary and Trbojevic, for example, at over $1 million. You'd be very hard pressed to get both of them in your side. Very hard pressed to get any in your side if you're looking for a balanced team. You might have to pick one just as captaincy, but if you can't, then I think Payne Haas is going to be great. He's a leader in an improving team. There's a chance he gets more attacking stats, and so from what I said there, I'd probably expect him to be priced around 750 to 900k throughout the year, up or down depending on certain games, or if he gets a 90 or 100, he can bump up the price. But it's going to be a great captaincy option. The team's going to be better, so I think he'll do very well. Reynolds is someone that I think has a little bit of value at 613k. He comes a little bit, a fair bit under that 50 average. And for me, I think in this team, he's going to have a lot more of a role. He could be parked next to Albert Kelly or Tyson Gamble, these types of guys. And if you're comparing that to his partner at the Rabbitohs with Cody Walker, who's going to have their hands on the ball more? Reynolds, obviously, in this case. And it would have been split a little bit more in the Bunnies team with Reynolds kind of taking over the game, but how many tries did Johnson score off the back of Walker's side? So Reynolds in this team, he's going to obviously kick a lot more than he normally would. He's obviously got the goal kicking, which is going to be great, and I think just more chances at try assists, which will be great for Reynolds. He's obviously a super important player to this team. He's going to be a complete control, and he seems very safe to me at a 613k. We'll see how it all shakes out and how many half options there are, because I think there are a decent amount. Be someone that's really reliable, doesn't miss many games. He's just sort of hovers around that 50 average for most years, and it'll be interesting to see if that changes at all moving to the Broncos. And I think he's still got a bunch, 3 to 4 really good years left before he might slow down. So that's that with Reynolds for someone that hasn't had too many big injuries. Move to Kurt Capewell at 511k, that 100k cheaper than Reynolds, and has the ability to score very well, but he's very volatile. He's very much someone who's going to score a try and pick up 70 and then have a pretty quiet game, as he's someone that doesn't have, I was going to say he doesn't have high work ethic. He's very much someone who picks his spots, so he's a very important player if you're looking at a player that's going to play Origin or something like that. He's very much an impact kind of edge player. Can hit hard, can score really good tries. The question for me here is him playing 80 minutes. So he's going to get an extra sort of 15 minutes on his average for the year. So that provides a little bit of upside there for sure. The question will be, does his work ethic increase? Will he score as many tries as he did last year? He scored more than Monrovsky, if I'm just going off a glance. But how many extra points do we think he's going to get? Like, is he going to be a 50-point player? If you want to pick him up at 511, I think he has to be that 50-point edge player, especially when you can't get him in the centres. So Capewell is a question mark. I think he's going to be a decent option. Is he going to be a knock it out of the park option? I don't think so, but I think he's fairly safe along with Reynolds. Reynolds being a little bit more consistent, and Capewell having that ability to maybe get close to gaining 200k. Where I think Reynolds has more like a 100k. But Capewell has every chance of hanging around that price or around that 550, 600. and being sort of a waste of a pickup at that price at the start of the season. So that's that there on the Broncos side. And we move to the Dogs, and someone who's I'm actually surprisingly interested in, I think is a really consistent and solid option, is TPJ, so Tabitha Pengai Jr. Got the dual position, the mid and the edge, which is great, at 668k. So he's a little bit under that sort of keeper price point, which is ideal for someone who I think is going to increase their minutes big time as an overall. So he's someone that got heaps of short minute games, a bunch of short ones in the starting lineup, a bunch of short ones off the bench, and then playing some off the bench for the Panthers when he moved there. But he did play really, really well when he moved to that system, and I hope that him in his discipline is much more improved moving to the Dogs now after having that stint with the Panthers. I think it's going to be really helpful for him. And that's all we can hope for if we're looking to pick him up, because the main worry here is going to be the suspensions. With it being so full on the way they were refereeing last year, that's something that we have to think about. Is that going to continue with TPJ? Is it going to continue in the league in general? I think it obviously relaxed a lot more after that initial, if you hit them in the head, you're gone kind of thing. The big one for him is going to be offloads. He's someone that offloads 3 to 4 times a game. And with the new rule of going 4 points of it going to hand, I think he's going to pick up sort of 4 to 6 points extra just off that, for example. And you're obviously going to miss a little bit on the tackle bus, so it might weigh itself out to be slightly even. But I feel like for him, he's a 700 to 800k keeper. So for me, he seems fairly safe and fairly solid as a guy that could get you some really big scores in the 70s and 80s, and hopefully a base somewhere around the 45 to 50 mark would be ideal. All right, and the last one with the Dogs is going to be Matty Burton. So the centre and half duel is going to be the important one here. And there's a few guys that we can potentially pick in the centre position at a higher price here that you could set as keepers for the year. I think that's really, really cool. Obviously, we need to work on the balance of the side. But Burton, if he's moving over to the Bulldogs, he's going to be the dominant half. And I think that gives him about 100k undervalue as a proposition there. So think about some of the upside here. Dogs, he's moving from the Panthers to the Dogs. Not ideal, right? But just think of all the games that Burton really gets a chance to play in the halves. He's usually playing with a reduced team when all the guys are out with Origin. So let's compare that Panthers team. They weren't winning too many games, and when they did, it was on the back of some Burton brilliance. So if he's moving to the Dog side, they're going to be a better team, right? He's got a few more weapons around him. He can kick to Anato Car. He can hit TPJ short. There's a few different things that Burton can do in this side, and I think they're going to be better. Will they be a top 8 team? Probably not. They might be like that Tigers level 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, but that's better. They're going to be getting some wins. They're going to score more points. It's going to be a little bit better for the Dogs. So I think Burton can do really well. If he's sitting next to Averillo, then I think that Burton's going to be definitely the dominant half. Averillo using more as a running half. We'll see how we go. But there's going to be lots of different centre options and keeper options around this price point and a little bit cheaper. So, Burton, someone, if you can fit in, I think he's going to do really well, and he'd be a little bit undervalued and very safe. Like, you're not going to see him, like most centres, get no tries and get 20, or get a try and get 60. He's going to be scoring a lot of different ways, which will be ideal. And then move to the Cowboys. So there are a few guys to talk about. Taumalolo being one of them at 620k. My thoughts with him is he can't go much worse than last year. He's obviously had a bunch of years in a row when he's one of the best middle forwards in the game. So you can think about that coming into this year. The question with him is he right from his injuries? Is his role still going to be lower minutes? Was his role lower minutes because he's coming off a few injuries? Like, he just kept breaking his hands. Obviously, both sides. I think he did 2 or 3 in the end. So many injuries. A bit of an issue coming into the preseason, into the start of the season last year. I'm hoping, as a Cowboys fan, that we see, and for my sanity, that we see some vintage Taumalolo, and he can go back to those barnstorming runs and big runs there. And the odd offload would be ideal. So 620k, I don't see much downside, but I hope, I suppose, for anyone who decides to pick him up, that he has a fair bit of upside and he can get back to that 750k, 800k. You wouldn't see him going any lower than that with a fresh preseason and hopefully some will in himself to push to get back to where he was, because it was only the year before that he was classed as close to the best forward in the game. So has he fallen off a cliff? I don't think he's old enough, anywhere near old enough to do that, and he'll have to adjust a little bit to how the game was played, I think, for sure. With the game being a little bit more of a ball-playing 13 role, maybe he plays a little bit through the middle, plays a bit more of the Payne Haas type of role. I think he's going to have to adjust, but we'll see how that goes. Secondly, here we got the Chad Townsend, Tom Dearden combination here. I'm just gonna be watching. They're at a weird price at 5.25. That I feel like if they'll be splitting the role, and if one of them happens to get injured, the other person is going to be getting the reins to the team. You've got Valentine who will be kicking goals, so you don't have to think about that, which is slightly annoying if you're looking at these guys. But yeah, I definitely think they've got upside if one of them gets injured and they play with Drinkwater, and he plays at 6. So it's interesting to see where Drinkwater plays, or if he does get a game and Dearden or Townsend is on the sidelines, it'll be very interesting. But yeah, I'm just going to be watching for the trials as to what their role is going to be. And then Lukey, so he's a very, very interesting one to me. I think the price point is a very, very good option, and there's a great chance that he's going to be starting. I feel like the Cowboys need a little bit of spark in their side, and he came in and did a really, really good job last year in limited minutes for the most part. But if he's getting that starting role in about 60 minutes, I'd say he's between 100 and 200k undervalued. To get 60 minutes there, we're looking at a score of at least 40, right? If he gets 40, then he's going to be up in that mid 500s to 600 mark. If you get the odd try, then you can hopefully get him closer to a 50 average. In a Cowboy side that isn't going to be very good, that is the worry, that he starts for a little bit and then gets dropped, for example, or he gets put back to the bench, or they change his role, or things change on this team. If they're not going to be very good, there's going to be a bunch of missed tackles, and he could be a part of that. So let's just hope that he's the type of player like Lolo was coming through, and he just stands out above the pack. And I think there's an opportunity for that because he is very talented. So for me, high talent price, player at a nice price, some attacking upside. He runs the ball a lot, so he's always over 100 meters. For me, that's a bunch of ticks there, and I think he's going to be probably a staple in my side if he gets that starting spot. So there you go. There's a few interesting ones in there, guys, across those 4 teams: the Cowboys, Dogs, Broncos, and the Roosters. I hope you got a lot of value out of that, guys, and it just helps with your thinking as you're going through these updated team lists, for example, as the types of guys you're looking for. And who you should be thinking about putting in your side. And a lot of it's to do with the makeup of the team as well. I've mentioned that it looks like there's going to be a bunch of different good half options and possibly a few different keeper centers. So it'll be interesting to see where you're going to place your money. And I'll probably be looking more about that at the moment and then going, okay, well, I'm probably going to need a cash cow in this position or a couple. And then being able to fill up your bench as well. But we've obviously got a long time to go before the start of the season, still a couple of months. But I hope you're enjoying these videos, guys. I appreciate you very much for coming and watching these. Please do like, hit subscribe. I would really appreciate that. And we'll catch you in our next video, team. Have a good one.